Hey there guys, this is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Toske, and this is the Tales of Graces F Final Thought video. Yeah, this one's been kind of delayed a little bit. It got delayed because my Blu-ray drive doesn't really have a Blu-ray burning software. Or I can't read PS3 games, rather, for some reason, because I mean it is still a Blu-ray. I think it's because they're protected, or that's what I've heard. But anyway, that's not really the point. The point is the game! Now, this one's actually a little different because I actually have notes here. So, to start off with, I guess my favorite character would be Asbel. I kind of felt really connected to him, really, in the story, and I thought what he did with Lambda near the end was really cool, but I'll get to that. For the game itself, it kind of feels like a Wii game. You can definitely tell this based on the whole alpha and burst art system. But besides that, it ports well. I mean, it's a nice game to play and whatnot. The battle system's a little bit different. It still uses CC, the combo counter thing, like Destiny for the PS2. But battles are from a slight angled behind perspective. Like, it's angled and you get to... And it's... Instead of being sort of like on a 2D kind of plane with 3D movement that you can do, it's literally sort of it's from a different perspective, and I feel free run is basically useless, and I'd opt more for sidestepping, which, you know, there's just no point to doing free run that often. Though one of the main things that I feel like Graces did to really change up things was the healer roles are now split between single user and multi-user spells, and I'd say this has never been done before. One could argue Tales of the Abyss, but I disagree because Tyr is clearly the main healer, and the fact that multi-user spells are more prominent in later Tales games. If you look at like Estelle and other and especially Tyr and even Rain back then, you know, you'll notice that they'll have mainly multi-user spell. And what I mean by that is, like, they target more than one person, like, you know, the healing circle or the revitalize, you know, those kind of moves. And healers in later Tales games also have at least, like in the past ones, have always had at least one, like, basic, like, spell, like would have like one single user spell, which to me implies that the healers are intended to be a little more mixed, despite having mostly multi-user spells. And from Tales of the Abyss, Tyr and Natalia share at least one spell that the other should have. Tyr being First Aid, and Natalia being, I think, Revive. That's my opinion, at least, if you just ask me. But, you know, that's just my opinion on things. Cheria and Sophie don't share any spells, so I feel like that's more of a split. And to be honest, I see Natalia as more of an archer with healing spells, as opposed to... I don't think she's a second healer, essentially. That's really my thought process on this thing, to be perfectly honest. That's just me, if you ask me. But... all party members have melee attacks, but not all of them have magic, like Asbel doesn't have magic. Now, the plot itself is interesting, in my opinion. As you can see here, we've got Sophie being attacked by what looks like a creature. This is important, to be perfectly honest. The plot and the characters really draw players in, I think, or at least it drew me in. And the child arc, which is what you see here, is really, I think, makes the characters grow on the player, because most RPGs rely on, like, you know, that memory. Like, hey, do you remember that time 7 years ago where the entire village was murdered? And it's that memory that characters recall that reveal the memory piece by piece. Graces lets players experience that memory, like, actually experience it, making the experience more heartfelt when you think about it. And I think the child arc is brilliant in that sense, if you ask me. Oh, King Richard. You're a douchebag. Speaking of characters, I think Sophie's really funny. She's basically a child. Her curious naivety and lack of a verbal filter makes her so amusing. Like, there's this one skit where she's like, they're talking about, Peach. Like, oh, Sophie, do you remember something? He's like, I'm not sure. Oh, wait, I know. Peaches look like little butts, especially Sherry's butt. And she gets cut off, and Sherry's like, okay, time out. I just thought that was so funny. The characters really are, like, just this giant family, Asbel's the dad, Sherry is the mom, Sophie's basically the daughter. As I said, she's basically a child. Hubert's the brother, Pascal is the sister, and Malik's the grandfather, I think. And I think the character, and Pascal actually brings this up when they go into the Rockagong, which, interesting point. The humor for because of Sophie, really, the humor is kind of childish. There's a bit of toilet humor, for example, going out the Rockagong's butt, talking about Peaches looking like butts. There's a poop joke that Pascal makes in one of the skits. The voice acting, I'd say, was good. It's good, I think. There's no real bad job. As you can tell by the yells, that there's a little bit of Dragon Ball in it, because the thing. Like, whoa. Really, Asbel and Sophie are the only ones who I feel are kind of new to things. I mean, Asbel's Bryce Papenbrook and Sophie's Cassandra Lee. Both of them are... I know Cassandra Lee's definitely new to voice acting. Bryce Papenbrook, probably not. I mean, he's Zidane from Dissidia, among other things. But as far as doing more stuff, he's kind of new. Everyone else is not only a veteran voice actor, just in general, like in the anime industry, but they're also Tales voice actor veterans. They've all, like, Malik's Duke, Hubert's Jay, Pascal is also the director for most of the Tales games, as well as some minor characters. Sharia's Marta, and Richard is Chester, who I think does a good job, because it's like the Chester voice, but also kind of different. But and these anime cutscenes are nice. I think they're production IG as well. I mean, it's nicely done. I mean, it's updated, and whatnot. No, I didn't. See, Dragon Ball Z. Like, he's even doing the whole power-up stance thing. And, of course, because of those gaps, you can tell that this was intended to be a boss fight. But, going back to the game, I really kind of found it hard in general, to be perfectly honest. It's really the only Tales game that I've played that I can remember where I felt like I've had to guard in battle. Not counting the child arc, because that's actually not that hard. I feel like it's when you get further on, especially in the other mode, which I'll get to in a minute, where the game just gets really brutally difficult. Just extremely difficult. But they'll yell and whatnot. But the dynamic between the characters, I think, is really interesting. Like, later in the story, where Sophie kind of figures out that she's Protoss haste and she's supposed to kill Lambda, who is possessing Richard. Asbel gets mad, and he kind of yells at her. He's mad, and it's sort of like that parental, they get mad, and it's like, but they get mad because they care about you. I don't know. I just feel like I'm probably not explaining it that well, because I'm partially going off of memory here. But I just feel like the dynamic between all the characters really is much like a family. As far as Richard's place in this family, I'd say he's probably just a friend, and I feel like that's kind of how they all look at him. But the entire game is you know, they've just got this big family dynamic that I really enjoyed about. I really enjoy the story a lot in this one. This one really drew me in, like I've said before. But, you know, Richard, I think is a very interesting villain in that, like Dawn of the New World, he's the antagonist, but he's a party member. But unlike Dawn of the New World, he's not like a mentor or an older character or a character who just joins the party in a story only, who appears in a crossover game van. But he's like a legitimate party member. You get him early on, and he joins the party as a child. And you don't really think of him as being a villain until much later. Which I feel like is more effective in the whole, you know, Tails villain kind of being, what do you call it? Sort of, because like Tails series, you know, their antagonists are like, you know, they're good guys, but they're going after things wrong. They've got good intentions, but they're trying to save something at like the sacrifice of another. Granted, with Richard, unlike Richard, I feel like this whole lambda I mean, granted, they kind of explain it early on, but I feel like it's more of like sort of like just an explanation for like just why Lambda's that way, and sort of like the experiment. It's like the whole experiment thing. So I feel like it's, you know, you feel sorry for him, but it's not as tragic as some of the others one, in my opinion, if you ask me. To be perfectly honest, I'm not really entirely sure where I'm going with that, but you know. Speaking of the dynamic of the characters, I'm going back and forth, I know, but the
So that's Fossilos.
it is the skits I think are really funny. They're voiced like they have been as of recently, and they're really enjoyable. I really feel like putting a voice to the skits make them more enjoyable. Having them in English does help, though sometimes reading them also kind of helps with the experience, because you kind of get into it a little bit more, I feel like, in my personal opinion.
The cocoon. Pascal, do it.
Roger that.
Darius bit. Sounds kind of like a Darius Carlon thing. If you ask me.
Come. Let us go to our place of peace.
But yeah,
Richard, no, don't.
Lambda, I see. I don't know if I'd call him pure evil. He's more corrupt than I think evil, if you ask me. I don't feel sorry for him that much. I mean, I really don't. He's not really that tragic. There are other tragic characters in the Tales series, if you ask me.
What happened to you?
But reviewers don't really seem to like the game that much, but they do admit that, you know, despite the cheesiness of it, the story is pretty captivating, and it kind of draws you in. Like, I know Game Trailers in particular agrees with my whole point about the child arc really kind of helps make the characters more. You really connect with the characters more, I feel like, in the child arc. So again, I really think the whole child arc thing was really brilliant on Namco's part. So good job, Hideo Baba, or whoever worked on the story.
Sophie, wait.
I like how her
Don't stop me. I have to destroy him.
Sophie, please.
How her gauntlets kind of transform, and they kind of
This whole place
do the
is
thing.
coming apart at the seams. We can't stay here any longer.
What should we do?
If we stay here, we're finished. We have to escape now.
although the voice actors are good, you know, I mean, Laura Bailey as Sharia,
Hurry, everyone on board!
you know, you can tell it's Laura Bailey, so, and she sounds a lot kind of like an older Marta, which I feel like is a bit of a problem. Steve Staley as Hubert, I feel like it was hard to tell that it was, as Hubert, because, you know, it's also Jay. Malik has a pretty standard voice, but that doesn't necessarily matter. Wendy Lee as Pascal, I think, did a good job.
The Sofarias are...
Yeah, that's just my thought process,
The lights are fading.
if you ask me.
No way.
But you know.
Don't give up.
Now, when you on the PlayStation 3 version, there's an exclusive mode called Lineage and Legacies, which is a friggin' bitch. It's the epilogue arc, which has a friggin' which, you know, it has like extra costumes for Sophie and Richard, because you do get them back. Kind of helping me kind of help going along with the whole idea of Richard
Sure is.
being different than Richter,
Wonder where they'll
for
end up.
example, or
What
Van,
do you think, Asbel?
and that he's more like a party member, like a team member, as opposed to like a mentor who trained Asbel or something.
Maybe they'll fly all across the world.
But
All across the
Lineage and Legacies mode is a bitch. The enemies are a lot tougher, and the way the story is set up, I really feel like they should have not only toned down the difficulty, but also made it part of the regular story. Just tacked it on, made the story longer. That would have made it more, or at least made it to where you unlocked it after beating the game, but it was still in the story mode. Like, you would load up your save, and it would play the next cutscene for Lineage and Legacies. But instead, it's just an extra mode, which I think was kind of dumb. Granted, I understand this was Namco's first time kind of making an extra part of the story to be played after the game. This is the first time doing an epilogue. But I remember people were really wanting this game to get localized. Like, it was almost like Tales of the Abyss all over again. But it was kind of funny because after playing it, I'm sort of thinking that Namco's probably thinking, why do they want us to localize Graces? You know? Because I can see why people wouldn't like it, but I personally like it. Like, there are a lot of feelings in the series, you know? So if you don't like feelings, this probably isn't the Tales game for you. But one thing to note is that the theme song is actually a English version of the Japanese one, Mamoritai by Boa, called White Wishes. But I feel like that was more of like just circumstance, because, you know, Boa is multilingual. She can speak, you know, Spanish, French, Italian, Chinese, Korean, and English. And she did a English version of the Tales of Graces theme, which they decided to use. I don't know if they took the time to re-record some stuff, or if they just... They probably remixed it, because I'm sure they had the... They probably contacted the studio who recorded the English version of her song and just kind of remixed it. Probably contacted Namco Bandai, Japan, because they probably had the resources. Though I keep saying that as if they're done by as if they're really done by you know, because from what I've gathered based on the interviews that we get with Hideo Baba, is that the Japanese team who makes the Tales games also makes the localizations. I think they have I think they have like local like translation help, but I think as far as programming and like coding and like who kind of puts everything together, from what I understand, it's the Japanese people. Or I don't know, maybe they translate everything themselves, which would make, you know, everything seem more official. in my personal opinion. But yeah. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. Oh, one thing I think I forgot to mention was what Asbel does at the end with Lambda. In the first arc, you know, they fight Lambda, and then suddenly Lambda kind of pulls Asbel aside, and they get into like this like state of limbo, and they have like a little one-on-one thing, and Asbel decides, "Hey, come with me." I thought that was really cool. I know some people would probably disagree, but I thought that was cool because Asbel does this entirely by himself. In the past, especially in in other RPGs really too, any kind of decisions like this, most decisions are like made like in a group. You know, it's like group discussions. Like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, even if it's not like. And I'm not saying they all like sit down and talk about what they're doing, but they all kind of have a general idea of what they are going to do. I just kind of like it because Asbel kind of does like a whole last minute thing. I thought that was just kind of cool, and he gets a different color eye, which was kind of rad. And of course, in Lineage and Legacies mode, Lambda takes the time to not only superpower Asbel, but also it takes time to kind of get the others to trust him. And, you know, he says, like, you know, there's nothing, you know, there's what's to say I won't just, like, come back and kill you from the inside. And I was just like, I trust you. And I think that kind of rubs off on Lambda. Though it's not like the game needed an extra mode because we've got this little epilogue thing going on here.
Once there was a young boy who discovered a lost seed.
Older Sophie. That's explained later on in Lineage and Legacies mode.
And he took care of it every day. Over time, the lost seed grew up and blossomed into a beautiful flower. What do you think happened to the seed after that? It turned into a bright, shining star that watched over everyone. This was its way of thanking the boy who had been so very kind to it.
And as you can see, that's Asbel's son.
Which star was it?
That's also probably
Well,
Sharia's
the one
baby
we
as
all
well.
know
In fact, I think
best.
there's like a
Our favorite star
thing.
of all.
I think in Lineage and Legacies mode, they kind of confirmed her being pregnant. Like Dawn of New World, though, this game also uses motion capture, which I think they did just to kind of make the game easier to develop. I don't know. It's a cool idea, but... And what do you do when you make another credits thing? You know, they're the motion capture actors. But... You know. It's really, I don't know, I just found the entire game kind of interesting. And I definitely think it's a good one to pick up. Is it the best Tales game? No. But it's a pretty dang good one. Of course, I'm like a Tales fanboy at this point, so I don't really dislike any Tales games, to be perfectly honest. Even Summoner's Lineage, a game that I feel is just kind of pointless. I don't really care too much about. But I think it's a decent game. The final boss of Lineage and Legacies mode was a tough person. I heard that it was supposed to be like Chazelle, where there's like it's like a gimmick fight, but gee, you know, that's cool and all, but you know, the Mystic, she wasn't necessarily that hard. Like, my team was pretty powerful enough to handle everything. I mean, I put the game on easy for that fight, but you know. Checking out Malik in his Speedo. Gonna get some ladies. Gonna put his dick inside them all and get them all pregnant. Yeah, I know that's inappropriate, but you know. And of course, they're bathing. Pascal. There's a part where she's like, Fourier, her sister, says she smells bad. It's kind of funny. She's like a big scientist person, so she doesn't care much about bathing. And of course, he's over there just... Oh no, he's not drinking. First thing I thought he was drinking. He's like, "Come guys, let us go help all the other people who are over there." It's probably them. They're out shopping. They're probably a couple. Lol. But yeah, Cup of Tea also did the voice, and as you can see, what do you call it? Wendy leads the casting. No, she's the director, just the director in general. And over there, we've got the reborn Sophie and producer Hideo Baba. The Lineage and Legacies mode kind of starts off as her kind of being upset about not being human, but that's pretty much it. If you want to know more, wait till we do it cover on the podcast, and I guess I'll see you later. Bye.